15. I'm Mike Bond on the chair, along with my colleague Paul Krikorian. Mr. Labange is scheduled to be joining us shortly. We have a lot on the agenda today, and we have a lot of public comment cards. So as a courtesy to the public, what I thought I would do at this meeting is take all the public comment cards at the beginning of the meeting. But before I do that, I need to start, as is my custom, with the multimodal roll call. I almost forgot. It's been about a month since we had our last committee meeting. Since the last time we've been here, who has used a bus? Train? Bicycle? Who's been a pedestrian? Everybody's been a pedestrian. Very good, see? That's why we need to be making policy that better suits pedestrians. Very good. Okay. Let me start with public comment. And Ms. Ramirez, you have cards on a number of items. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. So we'll give you 6 minutes to start.
Ladies and gentlemen, I take buses, and I take trains, and I take all that, and I walk. And I carry all my bags because I've been a victim of crime, as I am always, and also because of retaliation, and they seem to get into my bags. So I finally bought this one at Westwood, and it zips. So I'm on the bus or the train, and guess what? Hands go into my bags, and they take out my wallet and all the good stuff that I have. So I'm tired, so I carry all my bags, even at the city council and even at the meetings. I've been robbed, so I carry all my spiel here, bangs or whatever it is. Anyway, what I'd like to elaborate, the LA DOT, again, you've done a poor job. Transportation Department, you've done a very poor job, so all of you deserve a boot out, the royal boot. First of all, I'd like to talk about safety and protection. It's not safe on most of the buses. You have overcrowding, you have gangs and illegal wetbacks provoking brawls. You have urine, feces, and vomit on buses. You have MRSA, scabies, bed bugs, staph infections, and no one Lysols or disinfects them. I carry my Lysol wipes, and I disinfect, or I put paper under my butt, and I'll sit on things. I don't usually sit on the bus, period, or the trains, unless I've got something that I like, a plastic vinyl or newspapers that I can sit on top of. And again, I've also noticed that when you have certain events in Los Angeles, you post up signs that says service out of service today. You have to catch your bus at another location. Many of those signs become expired, and no one removes those signs. Thereby, the buses pass by after the expiration date, and they see those signs, and they pass you by even though the date has expired. So nobody goes around to remove those signs. They're taped up. I tried to remove them, but I don't have any scissors because they've been confiscated at the city hall where I entered. So I tried to remove them. I broke my nails trying to remove them for the courtesy of other people. So I'll wave to the bus driver, most of them Latinos, and they said, no. I said, help, stop, but they don't stop. Again, most of these illiterates don't speak English, and they don't give proper directions in English as well. And that's the other plight that we have as passengers. So again, removal of the signs after their expiration dates when you have events in Los Angeles, and that includes Metro. So again, that seems to be a big one. Again, hire people who speak English. And I salute Delta Airlines, who says that they have an English-only policy. God bless Delta Airlines. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It avoids a lot of confusion and commotion. And again, you aren't hiring military veterans, whether they are active or inactive, uniformed or ununiformed. They are extremely professional, courteous, cordial. They have excellent command of the English language, and I wish to God you would hire military veterans, because they give such excellent directions. My God, I just commend them. And if I were the personnel department, all of them would be hired, and I'd get them off the streets. Having said that, again, all of you, the Department of Transportation, this is no day for applause or standing ovations. You deserve the royal boot. Again, there are many problems in transportation. You need to clear. I wish each and every single one of you would ride the buses for 1 year and then prove me wrong. And I guarantee you, every one of you would be standing behind me. I guarantee you. Having said that, I, again, experience is the best teacher. So I don't speak out of my ass, as you already know. And we need improvement in the buses, overcrowding, drug sales, and all that good stuff. And I would ask you to Lysol and disinfect the buses. And welcome our tourists with excellent service. There's got to be a way to do that. And again, a lot of homeless people do come into the buses and they're infected and carrying a lot of bacteria. They shouldn't be able to board the buses. They should board a special shuttle bus. I don't know. A lot of them carry trash bags filled with cans, and that also spreads bacteria. There's so many problems on the buses, fights, and you name it. I wish to God each and every single one of you would get on the bus and see for yourselves the bus problems, whether it's delays or signs that are out expired, and gangs and all that good stuff. And having said that, I want to thank you, Councilman Mike Bonin, for allowing me this time without censorship. I do appreciate that. Just for the first time, I do appreciate that. And a lot of work does need to be done in the buses, from LA DOT and the Metro, and the coordination of buses where you don't have to walk such far distances. But other than that, the hygiene is most important, and the safety of the passengers is second most important. So again, God bless America, and God bless the United States military. I wish you would hire military veterans, because they would raise the standard and the elegance and the personality of America. I really wish you would do that, and people wouldn't be so confused or adamant when they're asking for directions and they're not getting the proper directions. And it just saves a lot of time. So again, God bless the United States military, our chopper pilots, and America. Again, thank you again, Councilmember Mike Bonin. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a number of cards here on item number 9, so I'll take those now. Gabriel Veltri, Cheryl Veltri, Laura Davis, and TJ Gridness. You can come on up to the table.
I need one for the record, please. Oh, I see. Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, well, we'll take it in order then, I guess. I missed, by the way, is Councilman Labange not going to grace us with
He
his
just
presence?
walked in the door.
Oh, good. Good. Okay, I'd like to wait till he's seated, if that's okay.
Sure. So what we'll do at this time, since Mr. Labange has arrived and you're all here for the same item, we'll take item number 9 out of order and do that right now so we can do the dialogue.
Okay,
with Mr.
thank you.
Labange.
Why don't I read that into the record for just a minute? Item number 9 is a Labange-Bonin motion directing DOT to report relative to expanding the restrictions for the preferential parking district numbers 184, 186, and 188 for the neighborhoods surrounding the Hollywood sign.
All right, well, Councilman Labange and I have met many times. I'm Laura Davis, and I live in his district on North Beechwood Drive. And we're here to support that item number 9, and there's a subsequent item that's almost the same, just different districts regarding the PPDs. I live on the block of Beechwood, which is north of Belden and south of Ledgewood Drives. As I said, I'm here to support the councilman's motions for 7 days a week. 7-day-a-week PPDs that will give much-needed additional protection to our Hollywoodland neighbors. And I'm also appealing to the councilman in your final weeks for the same protection for the sake of our families' safety, our home values, and quality of life, those of us that live on that one stretch that does not have a PPD. And Councilman, we understand that we can't accomplish that today. That's not on the table. But we're asking you to get PPDs for our homes in place in the 5 weeks you have left. Want you to know that 100% of the residents would sign a petition. There's not a single dissenter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl Feltry, and I live on Beechwood Drive between Belden and Ledgewood. And I, too, would like to thank the councilman for extending the PPDs to the Hollywoodland area, and want to express our request to return the safety of our homes and quality of life by extending that PPD to extend to our block as well.
Thank you.
I live on that block too, and I would also like to thank the councilman. I'd also like to add that most of the homes there were built in the 20s, and they have one-car garages, and the street parking is basically no choice for the residents in that block. There were some of the businesses a couple years ago were against the PPDs, but they haven't voiced any opposition to us recently regarding this. We can show you a map there of the parking spaces that are available for the customers and for the employees, most of which arrive before the crowds do for the hiking. Mr. Alatorre and Mr. Seinfeld have detailed photographic documentation of our village parking situation done over a 10-day period. These two photographs that you have are typical. A lot that serves the market and diner is usually open while our block of Beechwood is jammed.
Thank you.
Councilman, my name is Charles Cardanis. I also live on Beechwood, just above the market. My neighbors and I would like to meet you in private to discuss this in more detail. So if you want to name a time or a place, we'll be there.
Well, I can meet after this meeting if you have time, since you're here, if you're all ready to meet. But that's okay.
Yeah,
So
that'd be
Mr.
wonderful.
Van Dusen's here, the president, is that correct? Yeah, I'm following your request on this. Your request was to do what we did. But I think these other issues are important.
Great.
The other thing, Mr. Bonin and members, because I know I have 5 weeks left, there is a dash line that goes up there, and people do take the dash. And some of them are people who work in the area for the homes in the area, but some of them are tourists.
Mm-hmm.
And on your part of Beechwood, there is sidewalks on both sides there, and then it gets a little narrower. I've always had not support from the neighborhood that because there's access to the public lands, that there should be a van that carries people up there so that you don't have the parking issue. I have no problem restricting your parking to residents only. No problem. But I do have a problem to try to cut out access to Griffith Park or to the Hollywood sign. There's no question it's got to be managed better, but what all we do is not going to handle it unless there's some alternative that we could give to people. And possibly, if Recreation and Parks did get revenue and there was a connection from the Metro line, and not just a 25-cent fare, but a tourist ticket of $10, you would see money that could turn back to your neighborhood. We've already spent over $100,000 in a special security guard who sits at the inn. Approximately 1,200 people now walk into the park every day on weekends before we had the controls. There's a $150,000 new gate there. There is an interesting situation with inside the park. It has a private parcel, which is that of the Sunset Stables, which we love the horses and the people who ride there. But there's needs to be more to be done. And so I could talk to you about that. But there's been great resistance from anything that people will have access. In Mr. Bonin's district, which is a coastline district, there's no PPDs allowed at the coast at all. So they're impacted like this. I got it. I need to have PPDs there. And in fact, I'd restrict one side of the street 100% so they would assure the fire department in emergency. But because of GPS, it really has changed the dynamics. And this part of Griffith Park, everything west of Western, Mr. Bonin and Mr. Krikorian, were additions post the grant that Griffith gave, which has Ferndale, has Western Canyon, has Vermont, Hillhurst, Commonwealth, Riverside as entrance into the park. Here, the park sits right up to the neighborhood, and it does cause conflict. So I think some of these things could be managed, but also opportunity to get people out of their cars and come from Central Hollywood may be alleviated, because tourists will do what they're told to do if they're told an option's there. So I know Bruce Gilman, the fine voice of the Department of Transportation, is not smiling, but he will when he sees those buses fill up with more people and we don't conflict the community. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, sir. So we'll wait for you.
Wait,
Oh, I'm
sure.
sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Bond.
So Mr. Labange has agreed to talk to you after the meeting. So you have a motion to approve the item?
Approve the item there, but I cannot amend it to add this here. Let me ask Maria. Excuse me.
Amend it to,
To add this block.
yeah.
I can't amend it, so we can amend what you request that they look at the block.
Which block, sir?
This is between Ledgewood and Belden Drive, both sides of the street.
What street?
Beechwood, North Beechwood,
Beechwood Drive, but between
HWOOD,
Ledgewood,
and Belden.
correct.
Ledgewood and,
Right. So if I get a second on that.
Okay. So,
Belden, B-E-L-D-N.
thank you.
okay, so that item is approved as amended.
Got it. And the other thing I wanted to ask for the department, who's ever in charge, is there any opportunity for because this is as old as the neighborhood is, the businesses are old, and if there is some opportunity for a limited number of permits for the businesses that would work with the community, so Alex and the market doesn't get locked out of that opportunity, but I would have to work with you on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
I'll be here.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so at this time, we've had a request from Councilman Buscaino to continue item number 7, which is in his district, which we will do. And then, colleagues, I'm also going to recommend we move on consent items 4, 8, 10, 11, and 12. Mr. Labange, good with you?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so it's the direction of the committee to approve those items on consent. And we will then move to item number 1.
Item number 1 is communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. Chris Laban to the Board of Transportation Commissioners for the new term ending June 30th, 2020.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Bonin and members of the Transportation Committee. My name is Chris Liban. I actually work for LA County Metro, Deputy Executive Officer for Environment for the organization, and I'm privileged to be reappointed by Mayor Garcetti for this position, and I'd like to just reiterate a couple of points before we move on.
Please.
We have introduced a number of things within the commission. The commission is a very engaged commission. The commissioners I serve with are very much involved with the business of the LEDOT. We commend Salida Reynolds for all her work, for all the executive officers who have reported to us in the last few months. We have also made improvements on the frontline personnel over there, and again, I'm very privileged to be reappointed by Mayor Garcetti for this position. So.
Great. Thank you for your service and for your willingness to continue.
Okay.
Colleagues, any questions?
I just want to know, what's the biggest issue that you see is facing Los Angeles in mobility?
In terms of that, we at LA Metro have been expanding or trying to expand our system, and we need to coordinate with all of our sister agencies across the region. As the environmental officer for the agency, it's really the coordination of the least impacts for those projects at the same time,
Right.
Making sure that the multi-mobility connections are actually realized and funded and built for the region.
Right.
So.
In the valley on the 405 San Diego Freeway North, there's still 1964 off-ramps, and often they clog up. I see Mr. Gallagher, is that Mr. Gallagher right there? The valley engineer, Brian? You see how the traffic backs up onto the freeway to try to get off to the city streets. If you could just put that as your to-do list, to look at that as one of the many things there.
Yeah, we will coordinate with our highways department within
Yeah.
LA Metro to do
got it.
and address those issues. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Unanimous recommendation for approval.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. That brings us to item number 2.
Item number 2 is LADOT General Manager to prevent a verbal report on their ongoing programs and employee recognitions.
Great. Thank you very much. First, I want to congratulate Commissioner Liban on his reappointment. He's an excellent member of our Transportation Commission that does great work for the city. I'm going to first do staff recognition, and I have a couple of other things to comment on. But before I do that, I just wanted to have everybody from the Valley District to stand up who came. Everybody who's here. And thank you guys so much. I just wanted to point out, how fantastic it is for me to see people show up to support their coworkers, and really appreciate the Transportation Committee giving us time on the agenda to do this. It really is important for the whole department. So today I want to recognize a couple of folks. First of all, I'm going to recognize Fan Vong with the Temporary Sign Division. Please stand when I call your name. Fan is amazing. She's already been up since 5 a.m. today. She consistently goes above and beyond her job duties to make the streets safe. She assists in processing a large volume of requests from Film LA, DWP, Street Services, Mayor's Office, and many more. 21,000 work orders with her team in the fiscal year to date. She works from home when needed, making work hours less hectic to process more requests and better serve the city. Fan's dedication and professionalism make her essential to everyday operations. And next we have Barbara Porter. Ms. Porter has worked as a senior clerk typist at the East Valley District for 17 years, splitting her time between East and West Valley districts when staff shortages arise. Each year, Ms. Porter deals with 10,000 phone calls, replies to more than 4,000 email requests, and logs and screens about 4,000 service requests. Barbara's understanding of how the DOT operates makes her an asset to the city. For callers with problems, she knows exactly who to refer them to if she can't solve the problem herself. She's always there to listen with a good ear, a big heart, and a desire to make the city of LA a better place, one caller at a time. So please join me in congratulating them for their outstanding performance, commitment, and going above and beyond. And also many thanks to everybody who showed up to cheer them on. It really just warms my heart to see you all here. Thank you.
Ms. Reynolds, I think 5,000 of those 10,000 calls come from my office, too. So I especially want to thank you very much.
That's right. Here, here.
Thank you.
I take no position on your statement. I don't have any specific data to back up. I do want to go on and just note, many of you noticed that the controller came out with an audit of overtime at the Department of Transportation Tuesday of this week. There are many things that drive our overtime, special events, as well as...
Just a second. When your staff leaves here,
yes?
I just reminded me, if they have not, been to the Tom Bradley Tower, you can look down at your office building in the whole city if you haven't, because not everybody's been up there.
Go ring the bell.
Thank you. You got it. Okay, good job. Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
There are several things which drive our overtime. Primary among them is, over 2,000 special events that we deliver traffic control for, as well as keeping up with major initiatives like 100 miles of bike lanes or 2,400 lane miles of streets being resurfaced every year. It is clear that the department has had to put in a superhuman effort to deal with some superhuman increases in our workload and reductions in the number of staff that we have. It was also clear from the controller's audit that we have not done as good of a job in management at minding the store as we should. And that is partially not putting the tools out there for staff and their supervisors to use to be able to request and track overtime, to connect that to our recently launched e-work system with our work orders that shows clearly what work was delivered for the time invested. And then we did, I think for the first time, right-size the department's resources to deliver what we're being asked to deliver so that we don't have to lean so heavily on overtime. So I want to thank the council for recognizing that and giving us an increase in equipment, in resources, and a slight increase in our overtime budget so that we can give people a reasonable budget and hold them accountable. So we cooperated with the controller's audit. They did not make any findings of fraud, which we appreciate, but we have accepted all of their recommendations and are putting them into practice. So I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Well, first of all, thank you for raising the issue. It would have come up had you not. So I wanted to thank you for cooperating with and embracing the controller's report and working with him. And I know even before it came out, you started putting mechanisms in place to try to address it. I want to make sure that the controller's report doesn't sort of get left on a shelf. So I would like to have sort of a status report in, say, 90 days on where we are in implementing the recommendations of the report and the things that you said you were doing. I also appreciated that you called out how a lot of the overtime use by the department is effectively mandated, either by policy or by need for special events or because of all the workload we've been throwing at the department. There were a few things in that report, though, that it sort of strained credulity to think that the folks who were on the clock for 38 hours a week of overtime every week for a year was a result of those things. And I'm wondering what we do, what's the next step for that?
Well, I think that first, one of the controller's recommendations was that we limit the number of overtime hours that an individual can work in a given week. And that's really, in my mind, that's just a common sense sort of cap that we need to put in place for safety reasons. You have somebody out there who's been, on the clock for 16 hours, whether they're putting their lives on the line to direct traffic or they're making decisions about literally where to put the lines on the street for people to drive the next morning. We want to make sure that we have folks who are able to do their best work. So that's one of the ways that we're going to be focused on that. The other sort of thing that we're going to start doing is that as a sort of recently we've instituted something called TransStat, which is regular meetings with each of the assistant general managers in the bureaus throughout the department to take a look at how we're performing on a given metric. How long is the street dark after it gets resurfaced before we come back in and stripe it? How long do you have to wait when you call my LADOT and you need your stop sign put in? Those kinds of things. We are including in that going forward a look at the amount of overtime that each team an individual is accruing so that we can spot those trends and talk about ways to address them going forward.
Is there anything being done? I appreciate that, and I applaud all of that. I support all of that. I'm curious, is there anything being done to sort of look retrospectively at those cases where it looked like there were 38 hours every week for some individuals about whether or not whether work was actually done to that extent?
We, as much as possible, we have all the information about we have the work orders. We know that the streets got striped, and we have the timesheets. But, just as those sort of experts from the controller's office went through all of that as well and did not make any findings of fraud, mm-hmm. I find it unlikely that spending a lot of additional time will yield significantly different results for the department. And, we did, as I mentioned, make some changes in the chain of command approving overtime and would rather invest our resources in tracking it and keeping people accountable going forward.
Colleagues, anybody else have questions?
You should look at some of the other departments, how they do overtime. And sometimes some of the departments, because they run low on staffing, but the way they spread it out a little bit as well. And I also think one of the things that you should, I don't know, because I didn't get a copy of the report. Did you get a copy of that report, Mr. Krikorian? I think the Controller's Office, Ron, if you're listening, send it to all the other members of the City Council, not just the powerful chairman of the Transportation Committee, but because that's what usually happens around here. They send it out like a balloon, and it just goes. If you really want to get something done, I think Mr. Bonin had a great point of having it in committee and to break it over and looking at it. Yeah. But there's often emergencies, whether it's their demonstrations or whether there are fires or water main breaks or whatever the case may be. So I think that has to be stated as it is. And also we have worked with, and something I don't know if I'll get done, but I hope in the future, and you may want to do this, in an emergency in some of our adjacent cities, it's very beneficial and they get reimbursed when DOT traffic officers are called in for the emergency. When there's a water main break in Beverly Hills, or Los Angeles is West Hollywood, we're just adjacent to it. The impact of traffic is great, but your people, unless they have an MOU, cannot operate in there or thus get reimbursement. I'm sure in an earthquake, we just take over like we did in 94, but at some point it has to be settled out. Those things should be looked at. And also, I think in the future, for the mayor and the council, they should look like at an additional position, and not necessarily someone who's a traffic officer writing ticket, but someone who directs traffic at the intersections. The thing that upsets people as much as anything else is the gridlocks that there, but when there's someone in the intersection trying to keep the box clear and organizing it, I think that does have a benefit. And working with personnel in the future, I mean, this is a multi-year thing. Those positions should be key, because we're not going to widen streets like they once did to try to move traffic, but I think you do need people in the street. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks very much. Next is item number 3.
Item number 3 is a DOT report relative to applying for the California Department of Transportation's 2015 Active Transportation Project Cycle 2 Grant Award and recommended projects for consideration.
And we have one public comment card here, Sharon Lowe from City 1.
Good afternoon, council members. I just want to speak in support of the recommendations by the department, and I also especially wish to thank the staff, as well as the staff from Metro, for addressing the concerns we had with regards to the 2 projects that Metro was submitting. But particularly because they did address all of our concerns. One of the things that you know, back in February, the council did authorize and direct the departments to work together with Metro, but to address the impact analysis of the projects, particularly as it relates to the Union Station Master Plan and the Union Stations Connect, or Connect Us. And because some of those projects are located within Council District 1, even though the 2 projects they're proposing are located in Council District 14. We are supportive, but we want to ensure that the impacts analysis were addressed, and it will be done, and in terms of the program EIR that the Metro will be funding and proceeding with. But we wanted to make sure that our constituents, as well as citywide, all the impacts would be addressed. But particularly in terms of the ATP, I recognize that our staff, particularly the Department of Transportation and Bureau of Street Services, have worked really hard on this. And they did this pretty much under the gun. And in the future, we hope that the next ATP cycle, that they would have more opportunity and time. So in order to allow each of the new council offices, as well as the existing council offices, to really address their projects and to evaluate them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. Carlos Rios with LA DOT. And what I have before you is a report seeking authority for the department to submit funding applications for the Active Transportation Program. It is a state-funded grant opportunity that funds active transportation projects. They made available $360 million over the course of the next 3 years. And this report is addressing the process that the department took in order to solicit projects from the various city agencies and city council members. What we did is we put together, we sent out a notice once the notice from the state came out that this opportunity was available, which was literally March 26, 2015, with applications due June 1st, 2015. As you can tell, there wasn't really that much time. We immediately notified all of our partners and council offices and solicited requests to see if there are any projects that they're interested in the department and the agencies to consider. What I'd like to preface is that this particular funding program, Active Transportation Program, is very, very rigorous with their schedule. What the grantors have identified to us is that in order for a project to be successful and to be competitive, you practically have to have a shovel-ready project that's been vetted through the community, has done extensive outreach, such that if funds are awarded, you're pretty much ready to hit the ground running and start designing and implementing projects. Having said that, we looked at 11 projects that were submitted by the various council offices. We did a vetting process and identified 4 projects to be in a position that we feel would be competitive in this grant opportunity. So the last 4 of the 11 projects that we're submitting are brand new projects. 7 projects that are on the list were projects that were previously awarded funding through various Metro call for projects. However, Metro has lost control of those funds, so they required the city agencies to reapply under this program. So again, what you have in front of you is a report out seeking authority for the various departments to submit their grant proposals.
Thank you. So obviously I'm going to be supportive of the item, always happy to try to get other people's money to do things that benefit our neighborhoods. And I appreciate that this was a very narrow window, and I know it was very hard to get applications from different offices, and the timing was quite strict. I know my office tried to put some stuff together, and it was really hard to get together. I can't, however, fail to notice that this is very heavy on CD14, and CD14 tends to get a lot of love in terms of active transportation stuff. I think that's good for them. I'm not saying that's bad in any way. I think that they've done a lot in that district, and I think that the staff has a very good sense of how to do this kind of stuff. I think it's probably equally true that a lot of different council offices, either new ones or not so new, aren't as familiar with what the requirements are for active transportation stuff. And I think historically it has sort of been that council offices have been left to fend for themselves. You know, when Mike Hernandez was on the council, his office was great at applying for grants because he ran the committee that was in charge of grants, and some other council offices not so much. What I'd like to see DOT do, and this is, I guess, more for Ms. Reynolds, is perhaps we could put together a workshop of some sort. I'm happy to co-sponsor it and help put it together for the various different council offices to give them a better sense of how to get projects ready, not just for ATP, but for other stuff as well, like the Metro call and stuff like that, so that some are not further behind than others. Is that something we could work on?
Yes, Councilman, I'd love to do that. I think that ATP and really any money that comes that's dispersed by the state, we want projects to go forward that are shovel-ready. You know, ideally, only construction phase, single-phase grant applications, because the administrative burden is intense on those projects. And there isn't enough reliable project development funding, flexible funds that can be used to go out and meet with communities, put together a project description, take that through environmental review and analysis and through approval, and that's really what we need. We have had really not a lot of success in trying to lump all of those things together in a single application, and we've ended up losing money or having to give money back as a result. And I think that would be helpful for the council to understand, so that you can help us advocate for that project development funding, so that we can do that work and then take maximum advantage of the money that comes through the state, because there's only going to be more money available for active transportation, not less money available. So the bar is going to become higher and higher for us to have shovel-ready projects.
Great. So yeah, if we could do a workshop, maybe in the fall, we could ask Metro to join us. Mr.
Great.
Krikorian and I can help promote it to our colleagues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a great idea. Thank you.
All right.
I just want to add, the CLA in Maria's been the only pillar of light. I think getting the CLA really involved is one thing I mentioned on council yesterday. In the past, the legislative analyst has always advocated. As I reflect on what has happened or not happened, that needs to be strengthened. That's a key point with the legislative analyst office. So I wanted to mention that. Also, I spoke with Mr. Dan Mitchell today, I didn't know there's 14 or 18 lights that are not funded but approved in my district. And he mentioned, I'm not calling you out, Dan, but you took my suggestion. The Bureau of Engineering puts out a report that states what's going on in your district. Have you seen that report? I think that would be extremely helpful, Ms. Reynolds, to have that reported, if you get it, just so that you know, because things happen so fast and so quickly. Lastly, Mr. Reardon, when he was mayor, got rid of the CIP book. And that's the capital improvement books. And it was a good book. Does anybody remember the CIP book?
I do.
Okay, it was very good instruction. And all of a sudden it's June, and then it's July, and then it's October, and then boom, you're in a new year. I just think that's helpful. You should, I'm just looking at Mr. Krikorian and Mr. Bonin, just to say, for you to be successful in pushing projects through, man, that playbook's so important, graphics are important, not everything's in that little hand anymore. So I would just say you physically get that, my tip. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the subject of being shovel-ready, Assemblymember Frazier had a bill, AB 417, to exempt, I'm not real familiar with the bill, but it had to do with exempting bicycle infrastructure projects from CEQA for a certain period of time if they're done within that span of time, the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, something like that. I want to say that was passed and signed by the governor. Are you familiar with this?
If they are, yes, I am familiar, and the one little thing I would add is that the bike plan itself has to be cleared by CEQA, and then you're exempt.
Okay. Presumably, our master plan has gone through that process and provides that exemption?
I think is currently going through that process in big chunks of projects so that they are cleared and ready to be implemented. What doesn't always happen in that process is the community conversation. There may not be a separate, the plan, CEQA hurdle is cleared, but then you still need to make sure that people are supportive of a project before you go out and build it. So, yes, that's correct.
But, is that something that the grant funding agency really has a handle on? If the public outreach process of CEQA or an exemption from CEQA is already exhausted, why would they care if somebody is going to come and complain to their council member?
Well, I think as long as there's council support for those projects, then we're in good shape. When we get in trouble is when we create a project description, we come up with a cost estimate, we say, CEQA work is done, but then, somebody gets wind about it, doesn't like it, and we haven't done our homework, and we haven't had that conversation, and somebody comes back and says, I'm okay with the whole thing except for this curb extension right over here. It's very difficult to go back to the state and rescope your project. It can set you back over a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up on that, so you said that the bicycle master plan needs to have CEQA clearance.
Correct.
Before the projects, so to give sort of a blanket CEQA clearance.
That's right.
To what extent has ours gotten that clearance?
It does have it.
It does have
but I know that the planning department is also going through, undergoing an effort right now to clear those individual projects as well that are in the bike plan.
But if the bike plan itself has the CEQA clearance, why do they need to have the second level of?
That was in the legislation, is my recollection.
I believe the way the legislation was written is, yes, we are given a blanket approval, categorical exclusion. However, we're still required to disclose any potential impacts to the community, and there still needs to be a community outreach process. Even though we're exempt from the CEQA guidelines themselves,
You still have to do a traffic study.
you still have to do an analysis, and if there are any impacts, disclose them to the community. And if the community stands in opposition to the project, they can essentially say, we don't want this project, and we're back holding the money without being able to implement a project, especially if we don't get the support from the community or the affected council member office. So
I can forward you a copy of the bullet points of what the bill actually says so that you
Okay.
It doesn't totally let us off the hook.
Okay.
it simplifies matters tremendously, but yeah, there's still steps that we need to take. And one of them is outreach and notifying the community and constituents of the project and the impacts that it may cause.
Right. Okay. All right. So without objection, item number 3 is approved.
Yes.
That brings us to item number 5.
Item number 5 is a DOT report relative to de-obligating $25.5 million in 2001-2007 call for projects grant funding for the ATSAC program due to duplicate funding received by the city.
So the last item was something I was eager to do because it's trying to get other people's money. This one I'm really, really not pleased about at all because this is about giving back some people's money.
Okay. Good afternoon. Varesh Janoyan with the Transportation Department. So what happened here was back in 2009 and 2007, the department applied through the call for project for the design and construction of 8 ATSAC projects out of the total remaining 18 elements or 18 projects. So Metro granted us $49.9 million, call it 50. Soon after that, the state issued the Proposition 1B Public Infrastructure Bond Program, through which the ATSAC program was earmarked $150 million for this, basically the same, to complete the ATSAC program. That included the same elements that Metro funded us. So essentially we had double funding for construction part of the first 8 projects, but then we had nothing for design of the remaining 10 projects. So Metro approached us, said, okay, why can't the city use the state money and we will pay for the design of the remaining projects if the city can let Metro keep the overlap or the additional funds that the city is receiving, the double funding, essentially. And so the agreement, so Metro staff went to the board and board approved this swap of letting the city keep design money for the remaining 10 projects if they get the double funding, providing that the city, as an insurance policy, keep that money, the double funding, until we receive the state's $150 million. So we kept everything until now as an insurance policy. So now we have received, out of the 150, we have received just over $135 million. And we are on track to receive the balance. Over the next 2 years, we have design and construction progressing to get the remaining Prop 1B funds. So the situation now is Metro cannot distribute the available call for project money until the city formally agree to, with the Metro board, action to take the duplicate money and redistribute it within the call for projects. And that's what we're asking for here.
So you're saying there's no other way we can spend this on any other purpose?
That is absolutely correct. And in 2009, the Metro board adopted a policy action in which it mandated any deobligated funds from the call for project must revert back to the call for project pot and to be used for future call for projects. So you couldn't insert any project or substitute any project that was not part of the call for project.
So the only way we could do that is if we were able to convince other people in the county who might want the money that they should not take it back and let us keep it, effectively.
And good luck with that.
Yeah.
No, I find that people throughout the county are eager to help the city.
Any questions? Okay, this item is reluctantly approved.
Thank you.
That brings us to our final item, item number 6.
Item number 6 is a DOT report relative to recommendations for satisfying the Warner Center 2035 plans, transportation demand management requirement, and related matters.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Kevin Ecker with Los Angeles Department of Transportation.
I'm Sergio Valdez with Valley Development Review, Department of Transportation.
Great.
And we're here today for item number 6, and that's the Warner Center 2035 plan, demand management requirements for the new specific plan that was passed and adopted in December of 2013. There was an existing Warner Center TMO in the was part of the old specific plan that provided TDM activities, and with the new plan, based on all the elements that came together to make the new plan with our Citizens Advisory Committee that we had met with for 7 years. There was a idea formulated to create a new local development corporation in order to provide these services to Warner Center. And therefore, in our report today, we're recommending that the City Council direct LADOT and Department of City Planning to discontinue contract extensions for the Warner Center TMO and direct the Los Angeles City Attorney, DOT, and Department of City Planning to work together to establish local development corporation or equivalent organization as required by the Warner Center 2035 plan, and direct transportation and city planning to work together with this new local development corporation or equivalent organization once it's formed to establish goals and guidelines and performance standards for operation of TDM in the Warner Center area, as well as directing the local development corporation and city staff to either utilize city staff or to contract out services for TDM opportunities and activities in the Warner Center. There's an extensive background that I'd be willing to give if you would like that.
Let me first ask, we have a speaker's card from Christopher Park from the Warner Center TMO. Is Christopher here? Please come on up.
And Mr. Chairman, is Mr. Blumenfeld?
I was going to ask that
Yeah.
after.
Oh, very well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon. I'm Chris Park, the Executive Director of the Warner Center TMO. Our board is very concerned about the recommendations within the report. We thought it would be helpful to give you a quick background about what we've been up to in the organization for over a quarter of a century at Warner Center. Basically, the recommendation identifies what we've been doing as an older model. And we feel that what we're doing is accurate for the business community at Warner Center. Currently, Warner Center is made up of a variety of large employers and property owners, and the model that we've been using is to work within the corporate structure of those entities. And the report refers to social media as an outreach technique, and I think there's a disconnect between what the business community is getting and valuing and what this recommendation is. So we feel that the current model that we're doing is accurate, responding to what the membership wants. The network and the TMO paid, may I continue?
Yeah, to finish your thought.
Okay. Currently, the membership's over 25,000 employees that we're reaching within the network. We have a lot of carpooling that we've established. The ride-sharing rate is 1 out of every 3 people that commutes to Warner Center does not drive alone. They're actually in an alternative mode of transportation. We feel my understanding is it's much higher rideshare rate than the rest of LA County. We have an extensive van pool fleet. We got a lot of people carpooling. It's a partnership that we'd like to continue, so we'd like to continue the work that we've been doing.
Okay, thank you. Is a representative from Mr. Blumenfield's office here? There's nobody here from Council District 3?
I can't speak for the council office, but I have had conversations with them, and they are on board with the department's recommendation, but they aren't here to say that. So I don't know if you want to continue that until they're available or go ahead with the department's recommendation or another option.
They intended to be here.
Got stuck in traffic.
That must be right.
And they were voicing their support for the
Yes,
recommendations?
support.
All right.
I move we support it.
All right. All right. So that's the unanimous recommendation of the committee to support the position of the councilman from District 3 and the staff recommendations as outlined in the report. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
Thanks.
I got a public comment.
Yeah, okay, you're good. And that's it. We are adjourned. Rushing out to your post. All right.
I don't want to violate any laws. Daniel, I want you to hear this too, please. It's the public comment. I'm Tom LaBonge, Councilman, 4th District. This is my deputy, Alice. Roth, very effectively worked with Warner Brothers, and I have a check for $26,000.32 for a feedback sign. So do I give this to Bach to write a motion, Paul, or do I give it to the department, or give it to the city treasurer? I didn't want to carry around a $26,000 check.
If it can be used for a sign in my district, I'll be happy to do it.
No, very good there. That's why you're Mike Bonnet, man. You're a smart dude. So do you ever have that happen before? They came to our field office, and I said, Alice, report to City Hall. So to the City of Los Angeles, 200 North Spring Street. So all right, good. So what do we do with this? I'll give it to a Bach? Okay. Well, I don't want to hold on to it.
Let Alice hang on.
Let Alice.
Much safer.
This is Selena Reynolds.
Would you like to make public comment? All right. Seeing no further business, the committee is adjourned. Thank you.